You are Locked On Pistons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into a live Locked On Pistons Postcast, second night of a back-to-back, but you know we're here with you. I'm Jake Riepma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. And almost a carbon copy of yesterday, the Detroit Pistons allow way too many three-pointers, dig themselves in a big hole, but they showed a lot of fight tonight and made it a game in that fourth quarter, but eventually fall to the Boston Celtics. 130-120, the final score. Hey, we're going to break it all down on your Locked On Pistons postcast. Like I mentioned, another slow start, but loved what I saw from the strong fourth quarter comeback that fell short. And of course, we'll wrap it up with our studs and duds. But I want to thank you for your continued support of the Locked On Pistons postcast. As always, you can subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit on YouTube. We'd love to have you. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And this is your post-game destination. A little bit different of a schedule this week. We've got a Locked On Lions postcast immediately following the Thursday night game tomorrow night at home against the Green Bay Packers. And wherever you need post-game instant reaction shows, you know to go to Locked On Sports Detroit, and that includes the Locked On Pistons postcast. Shout out to Koo on Locked On Pistons Daily. Make sure you're checking that out as well. And by now you know, but worth a reminder, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. That's right, introducing the Locked On Pistons postcast. The Locked On Pistons Daily newsletter. That's right, the Locked On Pistons Daily newsletter. It's a one-stop for your ultimate team and league coverage, and it's delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. And hey, how about a presenting sponsor shout out, making today's show possible? Game Time. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Now that we've kept the lights on, let's get into it. And again, stop me if you've heard this one before. In fact, if you want to just go ahead and switch over to last night's postcast and rerun it and watch the entire thing, I'm about to say the exact same thing. No, don't actually do that. I'm glad you're here. But this game was a little bit different, but it started the same. And I even tweeted it out. After the first quarter, the Pistons were on pace to give up 78 points in the first half once again. Just a slow start. And again, I'm going to stop all of the second night of a back-to-back. They're tired. I just don't want to hear that. And I actually do appreciate those that want to argue with me on that because I just feel like it's always made into this huge thing, the second night of a back-to-back. And I know there's travel involved, but it feels like excuses being made before the game's even played. So Pistons come out sleepwalking, get outscored by the Boston Celtics 39-24, and the Celtics are the best team in the league. You can't spot them. A 15-point lead after the first quarter. They're on fire. And once again, it's the same story as last night. No defense, dribble penetration, Jaylen Brown having his way, and the Celtics are going to knock down open threes, and that's exactly what you saw tonight in that opening quarter. And it was so frustrating because it is literally to a T exactly what we saw last night. Just when you think this team is taking a number of positive steps forward, I go back to the game against Indiana on Friday night, a 130-106 blowout win where you get that positive feeling about this team and what they can be, and the youth and the excitement and the athleticism and the grit and everything else. And then it's just gone by the wayside the immediate night after. And I understand the travel involved with that. And then blown out on your home floor against the Milwaukee Bucks in arguably the biggest game in a decade because of the NBA Cup implications. And then this, again, you saw this coming. And I don't want to say it's the signs of a young team, but again, I don't want to make excuses before the game even tips off. Boston was ready to play. I know they didn't play last night, and it's in their arena, their barn, whatever you want to call it, on the parquet floor, whatever it is, and it's a tough place to play, but you got to come ready to go. And the Pistons did not, and a good team like the Boston Celtics are going to strangle you and get out in front, and that's exactly what they did. Now, the good was that fourth quarter. We saw what this team can be, the defense that they played, and a couple of instances that I wrote down that I felt like were winning plays for this Pistons team because they got it to 112 to 104, and they get a stop, and Cade gets a bucket to pull within 6 at 112-106. And obviously the performance of Cade Cunningham, and we'll get more in this in the studs and duds portion, but what a night he had. And again, other than the slow start collectively by this Pistons team, there were some good moments to look at, and Cade Cunningham finishing with 27 points and 14 assists is certainly among them. But one that was not a winning play, you got the missed free throw from Boston, and instead of rebounding it, loose ball, felt like Boston got a couple of those hustle 50-50 balls and always made the Pistons pay for it. And that's exactly what we saw off that missed free throw offensive board, and they get a bucket. So it turns into a 3-point trip to make it 115-106, back to a 9-point deficit for the Pistons. Got back within 10 at 125-115, again, because the Celtics started to make a little run. Pistons call a timeout. And with 2 minutes to play, you had Cade penetrating, dishing to Isaiah Stewart with the dunk to make it 125-117. The Celtics lost a challenge, and what do you know? Tobias Harris hit a three-pointer, got it down to 5, and that is as close as the Pistons could get at 125-120, because the very next possession, it was what's his name? Peyton Pritchett nailing that three-pointer. And I don't know. I don't want to speak for anybody, but he had 19 points. It just felt like all night. I mean, 5 threes, and he's just aggravating. Peyton Pritchett is. But you give him credit because that was the bucket that kind of clinched the game and sealed it for the Boston Celtics. But again, you're not going to win a lot of games where you give up 21 three-pointers to the opposition, and they actually missed quite a few in that second half, and in particular in the fourth quarter. But it got as close as the 5-point deficit with the bucket by Stewart, and then the three-pointer from Tobias Harris, who also had a good night. That should be pointed out as well. 27 points for Tobias Harris. He was 6 of 9 from deep, 9 of 17 from the floor. And Malik Beasley, for that matter, got to give him some credit off the bench with 23, 6 of 11 from the long line. And the Pistons, 20 of 39 from the long line. It was more of the turnovers. Again, the turnovers costing Detroit 18 turnovers for the Pistons, and that's not going to get it done. But I want to hear from you as well. Let me know your comments on this one. In summary, the slow start cost the Pistons because they actually played much, much better in that second half, and in particular in that fourth quarter. They outscored Boston by 5 in the fourth quarter, and even outscored Boston for the entire frame in the second half. So other than that slow start, you look at what could have been for the Detroit Pistons. Also, always worth noting, because I'm a uniform guy, but stellar uniform matchup tonight. As much as I hate the Boston Celtics, the green looks good. And then you got the Kelly green, and then the contrast with the Pistons City Edition Bad to the Bones jerseys with the black and orange and the 313 logo. So wanted to fit that in there as well. But it is a loss for the Detroit Pistons, and more questions than answers with who this team really is. And unfortunately, that's now 3 losses in a row. Detroit falling to 9-15 on the season, 5-8 on the road. Want to hear from you. Let me know your comments. What stood out to you other than the slow start? Or maybe you do look at this and say, yeah, it was a bad scheduling by the NBA. We had to go to Boston on the second night of a back-to-back, and maybe you're just fine with chalking it up to a tough schedule. I personally am not, because these guys fly private. They're compensated very handsomely to go out there and be a professional athlete, and that's part of being a professional athlete, in my opinion. But let me know what you think in the comments. Coming up next, we are going to talk more in depth about that strong fourth quarter comeback, and of course, we'll wrap it up with our studs and duds segment. This is a live Locked On Pistons postcast here on Locked On Sports Detroit. This episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by Game Time. You got to download the Game Time app for all your live events, because it is the best. There's a lot of ticket options out there, and a lot that will let you down. Game Time won't, because it's the best. And I'm not just talking for sporting events like going to a basketball game, or like I'm going this weekend to the Big 12 championship game and Texas and Jerry's World, but no, also your concert events. I'm talking theater. I'm talking comedy shows, all of it, any live event. Game Time's got you covered. And here's how it works. It's a very easy to use app with tons of features like my favorite, the all-in pricing, because this is where Game Time separates itself from some of the competition. They all have those fees at checkout and so on and so forth. You think you're getting a great deal and you're not. Game Time with the all-in pricing feature, if you toggle this in the app, it'll give you the bottom line, tell you exactly what the total upfront cost will be. No surprise fees at checkout. I love that. I'm a bottom line kind of guy. Game Time gives me the bottom line. There's also the nice panoramic view from your seat, and you can see it in the app before you buy it, so there's no deception. And you can take great peace of mind with the lowest price guarantee, or if you find a better deal, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, but I like to guarantee that ain't happening. So that being said, the Game Time ticket coverage is awesome. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So what the heck are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but create that account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and I ask you, what time is it? Game time. This episode of the Locked On Pistons Postcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks. The most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports is on Prize Picks. All you have to do is go download the Prize Picks app and get started today with our code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. Notice I said play because you don't even have to win. You just got to play that $5 to get your $50 bonus. Now, here's what I love about Prize Picks. It's simple, it's easy, and it adds a little more sizzle to your viewing experience. You simply pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and voila, you watch the winnings roll on in. Prize Picks is the best way to get real money on sports action, and there's over 10 million of us using it. You got to sign up today. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. So make a little more with that slush fund you got in the Venmo app. I know you got it there. And don't forget, Prize Picks puts your members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. And how about the flex play? That's right, Prize Picks invented it, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. Who doesn't love that? I'm not perfect. How about you? You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 off after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today, my friends, and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. It's time to get right into the comment section. One of my favorite things about the Locked On Sports Detroit platform. It's live, it's instant reaction. So let me know what you think. Nothing is off limits as we recap a Pistons loss, 130-120, the final score at the hands of the Boston Celtics. Don't forget, this is your post-game destination after the final whistle. We've always got a live reaction show for you, and that includes tomorrow night when the Detroit Lions, what's left of the Detroit Lions, I should say, my goodness, all those injuries, get set to take on the Green Bay Packers in Thursday Night Football. But your comments are next, so let's get to them. Demetrius McNeil says 41 combined three-point baskets for both teams, but the Pistons' slow start continues. Lions 31, Packers 23. Give me your predictions for tomorrow night. I like that. We can have a little fun with some Lions predictions because this is Locked On Sports Detroit, and the Pistons didn't give us a lot to be excited about tonight other than that fourth quarter, which we will talk about here in a minute. With all the guys out for the Lions tomorrow, no Taylor. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm a little bit nervous that it might be more of that defense that we saw in the second half against the Chicago Bears. And if Caleb Love can have a day in that second half, I know Caleb Williams, I know Jordan Love can have a day. So I'm a little worried about the defense, but let's outscore them. Give me 31-28 Lions. A little official prediction for you on a Locked On Pistons postcast, a little bonus coverage. How about that? But in that fourth quarter, some of the notes I took down defensively, I thought the Pistons were so much better than what they were at the early portion of that game. And the shooting percentages tells you everything you need to know based on the quarter breakdown. The Celtics were so much better in that first quarter, shooting the lights out because they had such better options, better looks. I mean, Jaylen Brown was getting to the rim at will in that opening quarter and really that opening half. He had the one dunk in the second quarter and I don't know what the kids call it when you do the and if you're watching on YouTube where you put the fingers up, and maybe someone can help me because I'm old and I don't know these things, but some kind of taunting move. I thought he should have gotten teed up for that. And speaking of getting teed up, it wouldn't be a Pistons game without Isaiah Stewart getting teed up because he always does. Now this was a double technical with Porzingis. It was pretty soft and not really necessary for the double T's to be handed out. It was at the end of the game, but it's more of the same that we see from Isaiah Stewart, which I guess you could say played a little bit better tonight. I don't know. And we talked about trading him last night just because I don't know where he fits in today's NBA. But for what Isaiah Stewart, he played 22 minutes tonight. He took 2 field goals. One was a dunk, and he registered 2 rebounds, 1 assist. He was -6. It's just not a lot of production, So if somebody else wants him, that's a guy I'd be willing to part with. I just don't know what his future is for Detroit, or let alone in the NBA. And I mean, he's usually his stat total can be measured in technical fouls. At least that's what it feels like for me. But maybe I'm not the expert. You let me know what you think in the comments. Some other things that kind of stood out to me about this game when you look at the bench production for the Detroit Pistons. Malik Beasley has been steady again, 8 of 16 from the floor, 6 of 11 from the 3-point line, and that's going to continue to obviously help this Detroit Pistons team that when you're up against the best team in the entire Eastern Conference like the Boston Celtics are, who are 9-2 at home, it's going to take everybody. And I thought Tobias Harris brought it. I thought Cade brought it. I thought Malik Beasley brought it. But early on, it was the Celtics bringing it more. And Special K and Blaha talked a little bit about this, but there's just so many different ways that the Boston Celtics can beat you. I mean, heck, we talked about Peyton Pritchard off the bench. He just always has a knack for coming up with the clutch shot, and he had the 3-pointer that won it. But 28 points for Jaylen Brown. Derrick White with 14 points. He was +5. 26 for Kristaps Porzingis. He looks healthy. And man, the Celtics seem like a freight train, and I'm not sure who in the Eastern Conference can stop them based on what we're seeing from them in the early portion of this season. But we got one more segment left before we say goodbye for the evening. It's a Locked On Pistons postcast. I'm your host, Jake Reitman. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Reitman. Used to be with 97.1 The Ticket, the Detroit Pistons flagship radio station, now with Locked On Sports Detroit, and fired up to be there. Studs and Duds comes up next here on a Locked On Pistons postcast. This episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by Chime. That's right. I've been telling you about Chime. You know the deal. We've all been there. You're spending a lot of money and maybe a little bit more than you should during the holidays. It's time to take control of your finances by using a Chime checking account with features like no monthly maintenance fees or fee-free overdraft protection up to $200. Or how about this one, getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Chime now helps with free overdraft protection up to $200. Your next deposit is applied to your balance. That's how that works. And you get spotted on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. There's no monthly fees or maintenance fees. And how about this? Conveniently, over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. To date, Chime has spotted members over $32 billion in transactions through SpotMe. Friends give a friends a boost. Eligible members get complimentary boosts to temporarily increase a friend's SpotMe limit. When you give a boost, they can boost you back to temporarily raise your limit. So set up a direct deposit in your Chime account. After a qualifying direct deposit of $200 or more, Chime will notify you to enroll in SpotMe. With an activated debit card, Chime will spot you up to $200 on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Your next direct deposit is applied to your negative balance, and Chime will never charge you for overdraft fees for using SpotMe. So enjoy the holidays while keeping your financial goals on track with Chime. Open an account in 2 minutes at chime.com/NBA. That's chime.com/NBA. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank NA or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Direct deposit timing depends on submission of payment file. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in SpotMe and are subject to monthly limits. Fees applies at out-of-network ATMs and OTC withdrawals. Here we go. We're wrapping it up on a live Locked On Pistons postcast. As always, we thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, your favorite podcast now has a daily newsletter. That's right. I'm talking about the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter. It's your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage, and it's delivered right your inbox. So sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. And I'm not as down as I was yesterday, because quite frankly, the Pistons don't stack up against the Boston Celtics athletically. They showed a lot of heart in that fourth quarter, but it was getting off to the slow start that cost them. It was more of what we saw yesterday. And now I will say this, when halftime came around, I was pretty fired up, texting some buddies like, here we go again, deja vu all over again, as the great Yogi Berra would say. But point being, the fourth quarter showed you a lot. That's what this team can be. I'm still believing that. And I think as guys start to get more and more connected now, you've got Holland and you've got Marcus Sasser putting in decent minutes. And with that being said, no Thompson tonight. Simone Fontecchio, just 11 minutes, only the 4 points. You wonder what he's going to be. And you wonder where the boost from the bench can be with this team, because Cade can't do it all himself, and unfortunately he's asked to do so much. 27 points, 14 assists, 9 rebounds, just missed the triple-double by 1 rebound. But studs and duds portion of the program, obviously Cade Cunningham getting a stud from me tonight. You can add Tobias Harris to that list, 27 points as well, 6 of 9 from the 3-point line, 3 of 3 from the foul line, 9 of 17 from the floor. Those were the Pistons' best 2 players here this evening. And you unfortunately have to give a lot of credit to Jaylen Brown, 28 points plus 16. A lot of that damage was done earlier in the contest in the first and second quarters, and he slowed down a little bit in that second half, but he's still plus 16 for the evening. Duds, I mean, I guess we could give Isaiah Stewart a dud. It just doesn't really do much. Jalen Duren didn't really impact the game, just 1 of 5 from the floor. And I know he does more to impact the game, but you got to get more than just 5 points, 5 rebounds from a guy that you're counting on to do a lot. And again, that just goes back to putting so much of the onus on Cade Cunningham to carry this team. There's got to be some help from the supporting cast. And overall, just I guess we'll give, how about this? This should make some of the anti-back-to-backers happy. A dud for the NBA schedule, giving the Pistons a back-to-back with Milwaukee and then Boston. But wish they could have handled it a little bit better, because if they don't come out slow, I mean, you're looking at a totally different game. You can't spot the Celtics 15 points. And again, for the rest of the way, they outscore Boston by 5 for 3 quarters. So that's something to build on. But I think I speak for everybody when I say we're all tired of trying to build on something. Let's see what we saw Friday night against the Indiana Pacers. Next chance to see the Pistons in action Saturday night against the New York Knicks. That's a 7:30 tip-off. And, of course, Locked On Sports Detroit is where you want to be post-game. Thanks, as always. And don't forget, Locked On Sports Detroit is where you want to be post-game after the Lions game tomorrow, because after Lions-Packers, we will be live with you recapping it all. So, as always, thanks so much for making the Locked On Pistons postcast your post-game destination, free and available wherever you get your podcast. My name is Jake Rietma. Appreciate all the comments. Try to respond to each and every one of them. So if you're catching the audio-only version or watching later on YouTube, we are here for you as well. Pistons fall to the Boston Celtics. Final score 130-120. Pistons now 9-15 on the season. Have a wonderful night, everyone, and we'll see you next time on Locked On Sports Detroit.